Hello. Recently, throughout the whole of the UK, there has been this talk about another democratic people's vote. And I just wanted to rattle off some thoughts on it because I think it's the absolute worst thing that the Remainers can try and do. Not only are they assuming that Remain is a surefire win after Project Fear came to no fruition whatsoever. I mean, the pound took a bit of a hit, and so did a bit of business, but wages were rising, things like this. Like, we didn't get a doomsday that we were told, and we're still a very strong economy, even with Theresa May being an absolute moron. But I see a lot of people trying to talk about democracy and not really understanding really what a democratic vote is or what democracy actually entails. So I'll start off by explaining what I interpret democracy as. Democracy is the understanding that every individual who is eligible to vote, so in this case over the age of 18 in the UK, and that is because every individual has authority in some sense toward how his country is going to be run. So that's why we have general elections every 5 years. I mean, personally, I think it should be extended to maybe 7 or 8 because 5 years is just way too short, and changes you make in that time are either easily overturned or if they're if they want to make a lot of change, they'll do it really quick. And if they're kept in, then you end up with draconian laws like the Malcolm's Act. Whether extending the time a party is in power will change that, I don't know, but I don't think 5 years is long enough personally. But these are democratic votes that they're done in, and we have a first past the post system, basically meaning a party holds a seat. Once all the seats make it up to a point where the majority of the seats in the House are held by one party, then they automatically become the party in power. And I see people wanting proportional representation, which happens in most countries across Europe, but these countries then never seem to actually get anything done, and they seem to just be in a massive spiral, while the parties in power really want to get sort of a social democracy forward, which is fine, but it just doesn't actually let your government progress in any way, it seems. But the point is that all these systems are effectively good democracies. They let people have the power to change. Well, I know it's a small amount of power. You're one in a million people, something like that. You have the power to change who is your local MP, who is representing you in Parliament, whatever. You have the power to choose who controls government. Now, it has its own problems. There are perverse incentives, and people are going to be way too short minded to think about it. So, what happens when we get a once in a lifetime referendum? Let's say the referendum to leave the European Union for England. We went through it and we ended up with Brexit, and the fallout was incredible. So incredible was it that we're still, to this day, hearing about how Leavers didn't understand what they were voting for, even though the government made sure everyone knew what they were voting for. Propaganda slips were handed through doors by the Tory government in favour of the European Union. So people knew what the benefits were of staying in the European Union, and Vote Leave were doing what they could to make sure what people knew the benefits of leaving it. And obviously, after all this, everyone must have been informed to a good degree to make a decision on the day. And quite a few people I know, me included actually, decided on their vote within 48 hours of the election, because that's the only time that they actually had time to look into everything and really decide, because people's lives are busy. And that's part of the reason why referendums are terrible ways to govern. People don't have the time to look into these situations to the extent they should. And whether it was Leave or Remain who understood what they were voting for more, it doesn't matter. It should never have been a referendum. But Leave won. Leave won by a margin of about 1 million people. You have to implement what was promised in that referendum, which was to leave the European Union. And you've got Remainers and other people saying, oh, well, that doesn't mean we have to leave the single market. This doesn't mean we have to leave that, and the other. It's like, right, if these are European Union institutions, yes, we have to leave them. That was made clear that that is what was going to happen. I mean, for God's sake, it was the highest turnout we've had in any election or vote for years. If, in fact, no, it was the biggest turnout of voters ever for an election. That's incredible. And people are trying to say that people didn't know what they were voting for, and people are saying, oh, we need another referendum just to make sure people really got what they were saying. Look, people knew what they were saying back 2 years ago when they voted for this. And that's because they're still using the same reasoning now as they did back then. Just as Remainers are trying to find the same points to beat down the Leavers who are trying to make points on them are. It's the same conversation. So why have another referendum if the conversation's still the same? If the conversation's still the same, odds are the referendum's going to be the same. In fact, I'd argue Leave have more leverage over trying to get voters on their side because they can literally just say this referendum is stupid and you should vote Leave because we voted Leave in the first one, and this is absolute government betrayal of exactly what we voted for. This is unconstitutional, and this goes against everything that a democracy is. And I can see a bigger margin of Leave winning this time. I honestly could. And there was news today. I read it in the Times. I just read the headline, but apparently people in the cabinet are planning on a second EU referendum. And my question would be to that is, well, why? Your party gave us this vote. They gave us all the information we needed about the European Union. They allowed us to have the vote and have our say on the matter. And when we gave our say, you're now going to turn around and plan to have a second vote because apparently it's the democratic thing to do. No, the democratic thing to do is implement the result, make sure we leave the European Union, and then when it comes around in another generation, not even that, it could be about 20 years, because I believe the last vote on the EEC, as it was known then, was in the 70s. So 40 years later, we're having another vote on it. Well, I don't see why we couldn't wait at least a decade. I mean, we don't even have to wait 40 years, but we have to leave, see where that leaves us. I mean, okay, if it leaves us in a worse state, fair enough, we might vote back in. But you can't just try and predict the future because no one knows what's going to happen. People think the European Union is going to collapse in 5 years, which wouldn't be surprising because Italy hate the European Union. The French people seem to be revolting against the EU establishment candidate Macron. Merkel's gone. Her replacement seems to be just as bad. I mean, no one seems to be actually wanting to support this who isn't already part of it. No one seems to want to try and get in the EU to get somewhere because no one seems to have faith in it. I mean, for God's sake, you've got the whole of YouTube hating the European Union because of Article 13. Like, come on. But this all brings me back round to democracy because your institution doesn't believe in democracy. We had, I've forgotten his name, Guy something or other, up on stage saying we need nations to give us their sovereignty. They need to give up their sovereignty for this union. Now that's going a lot deeper than just countries are losing their power. That also means the people in those countries are going to be disenfranchised because their own government can't actually do anything for them. And it's all going to be transferred over to the European Union, who, as everyone should know by now, is the least democratic institution we've ever had in the West. From when it was incepted, of course. I don't mean Nazi Germany. Jesus. But to bring it back round to the point of what democracy is, no, a second referendum is not democratic. It's not democratic because it is, by and large, just ignoring the first one to have another go at it. A democratic vote is a one-time thing that the whole country does, or whatever is voting in. It could be like a local election, so the local community all go and vote. They all use their individual right and powers to try and shape their future and their government. And if that is ignored for, say, another vote because the people already in power didn't like the answer, I mean, what you're looking at there is authoritarianism in a nutshell. And I don't know why people can't see that. I mean, we even had Andrew Neil not understanding why it's not democratic. And I mean, I don't know if Andrew Neil's actually a leaver. He seems to like just try and challenge people for the fun of it more than actually having his own opinion shown on television or on Twitter, wherever. But even he was not understanding why this is an undemocratic move. And he's had people on his show who are saying, when he's asked them, will you accept this referendum result? And whoever was on it, I can't remember who it was, but she said yes. And Michael Portillo just laughs at her and says, well, you didn't accept the first one. Why can we trust you to accept the second one? It's just crazy. But you are literally telling all the people who went out to use their power specifically to get out of the European Union and say, no, not having that. Not having that at all. You need to try again. And this time, if it works, we'll be a lot happier. But knowing the English, they won't do that because we are bloody difficult. So now that I've gone through the nonsense of second referendums and redoing referendums and how they actually make you an authoritarian state, I'm now going to go on to the other argument of what about the 48% that voted Remain? Fuck them. basically. If you have a Labour Party in power, you don't go, oh, what about the rest of the people that all voted Tory? Like, no, you still get Labour laws through. You get, like, it works as if Labour won the election. It doesn't work as if Labour mostly won the election, but some people voted for other people. But you have MPs there. It's things like that. I mean, when we voted for the EEC back in the 70s, we voted to join it. Did we listen to the people who said don't join it? No, we did not. This happens in every referendum. One side wins, that side is implemented. I mean, Remainers, you can want to try and keep in as the EU as much as you want. May's deal has done that, and it essentially makes us a vassal slave state, and it is going to probably be the worst thing that the UK can go through. Because not only that, we are paying to be this type of vassal state, 32 billion, 39 billion even, which I'm against paying that much. I'm not against paying the EU deals we made while we were in them. Like, a deal's a deal, a contract's a contract, pay off what you need to, but make no more, and they shouldn't expect any more. But you should do that on terms back, so we have our independence and we are totally cut from the European Union. That's how it should be going. But instead, we're paying apparently exactly what we should. I don't know the details, unfortunately. But also with that, we're still under European jurisdiction. Article 13 is probably still going to affect us. Things like that. Just crazy. And that's just the problems of it. That's not even on principle what a democratic vote is. Honestly, it's just hogwash. I think the point being is that you can't please everyone. And David Cameron knew this. I mean, the main point of the referendum was to try and put this point away forever. The thing is, it didn't go the way he wanted to. It made the Tories split seem even worse, given that no confidence vote. Which, by the way, I did see a tweet, again, I can't remember who by, but he's saying, oh, if they can have another election on their leader of the party, why can't we have another one on the future of the country? And it's just like, wow, they are so different, I can't even get my head around how you could even think for that to come out of your mouth. The constitutions between a referendum for the country and the way a party works are completely different. And even then, they had a vote, and Theresa May won a no confidence vote, and it's like, oh, what about those 100 people who voted to get rid of her? Like, no, you don't appease them. They lost the vote, and that was the point in the referendum. It was to implement whatever the hell was to be implemented from the result. The result was leave. You've got to implement leave. Once we've left, then you can start talking about having another referendum. And if you have it straight after we leave, then my God, you're still going to get a hell of a lot of leavers pushing for leave to stay. Because, my God, you can't just join the European Union back like that. It's ridiculous. I think the worst part about all of this, though, is that if we do end up having another referendum, we're never going to know which votes are binding in the UK anymore. And once you do that, democracy's dead. How are you supposed to know when your vote actually counts? How do you know when you are trying to use your power it will actually get results? I mean, if we don't leave the European Union and the Remainers' fantasy of staying in Europe actually comes to fruition, you'll have riots. Because why wouldn't you? Because these people don't have any power that they thought they had when it comes to the government and the way their country's run. You're supposed to get one vote once every 5 years, and then when there are referendums or by-elections or whatever, you can be assured that whatever the result from that is going to be implemented. If in this case it doesn't, well, on principle you should never vote again, because it obviously doesn't count for anything. But that's everything I had on my mind about democracy. I'm sorry it was a bit of a mess, but it's been a busy day. But thank you very much for listening, and goodbye.